Ambassador HFY's chitinous exoskeleton clicked nervously as he scuttled into the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. His compound eyes, all 17 of them, swiveled to take in the assembled representatives from across known space. This was his first major council session, and naturally, they were discussing the most terrifying topic in the galaxy's database. "Order, order," droned Council Prime HFY, their gelatinous form wobbling with authority. "We are here to discuss Catalog Entry 7749, commonly designated as Sol 3, colloquially known as," they paused dramatically, "Earth." A collective shudder rippled through the chamber. HFY's antennae twitched. He'd heard whispers about Earth in the academy, late-night horror stories exchanged between students. But surely those were exaggerations. Nothing could actually be that bad. "Let's review the data, shall we?" HFY activated the holographic display, and HFY immediately regretted his skepticism. The planet rotated before them, deceptively beautiful with its blue and green surface. Then the statistics began scrolling. Gravity, 1.0 standard G, read Science Officer Plimket, their tentacles trembling. That's nearly double what most civilized species consider habitable. Atmospheric composition, 21% oxygen. Gasps echoed through the chamber. "Yes, you heard correctly. Oxygen. The universe's most corrosive gas, just floating around freely. The entire planet is basically a slow-motion fire waiting to happen." HFY felt his spiracles constrict. This had to be a mistake, but Plimket continued, voice rising with each horrifying detail. "Temperature variance, -90 to +58 degrees Celsius. The atmosphere regularly hurls frozen water at the surface with enough force to dent metal. Sometimes it hurls the water horizontally at speeds exceeding 200 kilometers per hour. They call these hurricanes, and apparently, they're just a seasonal inconvenience." "Surely nothing lives there," HFY chittered, his translator converting his species' clicking language into galactic standard. "Oh, it gets worse," Plimket said with the enthusiasm of someone sharing a particularly gruesome tragedy. "Tectonic activity, extreme. The planetary crust literally tears itself apart and crashes back together. Volcanic activity, ongoing. Asteroid impacts, regular. And the wildlife," they pulled up images. "The wildlife consists of creatures that have evolved specifically to kill and consume each other in increasingly creative ways." The hologram displayed something called a great white shark, 3 tons of pure murder with rows of serrated teeth. Then a saltwater crocodile, which looked like it had been designed by a committee of sadists. Then something labeled mosquito, and the entire council recoiled. "That tiny organism," Plimket explained, "kills more of Earth's dominant species annually than any other creature. Through disease transmission. Yes, the planet has microorganisms that specialize in creative genocide." HFY's mandibles clacked in disbelief. This must be a prison world. A dumping ground for the galaxy's worst criminals. No sane civilization would voluntarily inhabit such a nightmare. "That's what we thought too," HFY said softly. "Until we detected the radio signals." The chamber fell silent. "You mean," HFY whispered, his voice translator barely functioning through his shock, "something actually evolved there? Intelligent life? On that?" He gestured wildly at the rotating death trap on the hologram. "Evolved, thrived, built a civilization, and apparently," HFY's form rippled with what might have been nervous laughter, "they call it home." HFY needed to sit down. Unfortunately, his species didn't sit. This was going to be a very long council session. Military Commander Velkara's scales rippled with the iridescent colors of determination as she reviewed the mission briefing. Her slit pupils narrowed at the datapad displaying Earth specifications. In her 3 centuries of military service across 47 star systems, she had never seen anything quite this horrifying. "Let me get this straight," she hissed, her forked tongue tasting the air in agitation. We're mounting a rescue operation to a Class 12 Deathworld. The highest possible classification. A planet so dangerous that our automated probes have a 92% failure rate just entering the atmosphere. Correct, Commander, replied her second-in-command, a furry Nixaran named Chip Tech who was already sweating through his uniform despite the ship's optimal climate controls. The Council believes any intelligent survivors would be in desperate need of evacuation. Velkara pulled up the survival probability calculations that the Science Division had spent 3 weeks computing. The numbers made her want to shed her skin prematurely. Survival odds for unprotected sentient life on Earth's surface, 0.0000001%, she read aloud. That's assuming they have shelter, purified water, protective equipment, and aren't directly exposed to the wildlife, weather patterns, tectonic events, solar radiation, or, she scrolled further, something called pollen season. What in the name of the founders is pollen season? Apparently, Commander, the plant life releases genetic material into the atmosphere that causes respiratory distress in many species, Chip Tech explained, his whiskers twitching nervously. It's like a planetary-wide biological attack that happens annually. The plants are hostile too. Of course they are, Velkara muttered. Why wouldn't the plants be trying to kill everything? That would be the one mercy this cursed rock could offer. She pulled up the equipment manifest for the rescue fleet. Excessive didn't begin to cover it. 12 warships, for a mercy mission. 40,000 hazmat suits rated for Class 10 environments, because Class 12 rated suits didn't exist yet, they'd have to make do. Enough medical supplies to treat every known toxin, venom, disease, and radiation type in the database. Decontamination chambers. Quarantine facilities. Enough weapons to level a small moon, because who knew what kind of defensive positions these desperate survivors had erected against their nightmare world. The xenobiologists are having a philosophical crisis, Chip Tech reported, pulling up another screen. Half of them insist that intelligent life cannot possibly develop under such conditions. The constant stress, the resource scarcity, the endless environmental threats, it should produce nothing but simple survival responses. No art, no culture, no advanced reasoning. And the other half? They're arguing that if anything did evolve there, it would be so traumatized and survival-focused that first contact should be handled by psychiatric professionals, not the military. Velkara's laugh came out as a sharp hiss. Psychiatric professionals. Right. Because what these survivors need after clinging to existence on that hellscape is someone asking them how they feel about it. She shook her head, scales clicking. No, if anything's alive down there, they'll need immediate extraction, medical attention, and probably a few decades of therapy on a nice, safe, boring Class 1 world where the most dangerous thing is a stiff breeze. She reviewed the final mission parameters. Full hazmat protocols, everyone in sealed suits before entering Earth's atmosphere. Weapons hot, who knew what the wildlife or desperate survivors might do? Medical teams on standby. And perhaps most importantly, 12 different species of xenopsychologists, because the Council insisted that anything that survived Earth would need serious mental health support. The fleet departs in 6 hours, Velkara announced. Tell the crew to make peace with their deities. We're about to visit the galaxy's worst nightmare. Commander, Chip Tech's voice wavered, what if there's nothing left to rescue? Velkara's tail lashed once, sharply. Then we document how that horrible planet finally killed whatever was unlucky enough to evolve there, we mark the entire system as forbidden, and we build a warning beacon so bright that every ship in the sector knows to stay away. She didn't mention her secret fear, the one that kept her awake during rest cycles. What if something had not only survived Earth, but adapted to it? What kind of creature would that create? She'd find out soon enough. The fleet's engines were already warming up, the fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system, and immediately, every sensor started screaming warnings. Report, Velkara commanded, though she could already see the problem on every display screen. The entire system was a cosmic shooting gallery of terrible decisions. Commander, the navigation officer, a crystalline shard named Clicks, chimed with barely suppressed panic, the star. The primary star. It's a G-type main sequence. In standard, please. It's a cosmic flamethrower, Commander. It's bombarding the entire system with enough radiation to sterilize most known lifeforms. And it has these eruptions called solar flares that just randomly spike the radiation levels even higher. This entire system should be marked as hazardous to navigation. Velcara's scales flushed orange with stress. And people are supposedly living here. Wonderful. What about the other planets? The holographic display lit up with the Sol system's planetary lineup, and it looked like a catalog of ways the universe could kill you. Mercury, closest to the Sun, surface temperature 430 degrees Celsius, no atmosphere. Venus, sulfuric acid clouds, surface pressure 92 times standard, hot enough to melt lead. Mars, frozen desert, thin toxic atmosphere. Jupiter, gas giant with storms that have been raging for centuries and radiation belts that would fry our ships. Saturn, similar nightmare, just with pretty rings to watch as you die. And the outer planets, Clix's chime turned into something resembling a whimper, they're so cold that most elements turn solid. So Earth is the best option in this system, Chiptech observed. That's like saying it's the friendliest black hole, Velcara snapped. What about Earth's moon? The tactical officer, a gelatinous Kelpix, burbled nervously. Commander, that moon is an existential threat waiting to happen. It's huge, over a quarter of Earth's diameter. It's slowly drifting away, but right now it's close enough to cause massive gravitational distortions. The planet's oceans literally rise and fall twice daily because of it. The entire world is being gravitationally pummeled by its own satellite. Of course it is, Velcara muttered. Why should the moon be any less hostile than everything else in this cursed system? Commander. The communications officer's frills suddenly stood straight up. I'm detecting radio signals from Earth. Multiple frequencies. Broadcasting continuously. Finally, some good news. Distress calls? That's the strange part, Commander. They don't appear to be distress calls. The linguistic analysis team is working on translation, but the preliminary assessment is, the officer paused, confusion evident, entertainment broadcasts. Every head, appendage, and sensory organ in the command center turned toward the communication station. Entertainment, Velcara repeated slowly. You're telling me that survivors on a Class 12 Deathworld, barely clinging to existence, are broadcasting entertainment? Yes, Commander. And music. Lots of music. There's one frequency that appears to be nothing but music, interrupted periodically by talking. They call it classic rock radio, according to the translation matrix. Chiptech's fur stood on end. They're playing music. While living on that. He gestured at the holographic display of Earth, with its hurricanes, volcanoes, and tectonic plate boundaries highlighted in threatening red. Maybe it's a coping mechanism, suggested the ship's xenopsychologist, Dr. Thimbrell. Extreme trauma can cause species to develop unusual behaviors. Music might be how they process the constant terror of their existence. Velcara wasn't convinced. Something was very wrong here. Survivors didn't broadcast music. They broadcast pleas for help. They rationed power. They certainly didn't waste energy on entertainment. Maintain alert status, she ordered. Continue approach to Earth. And someone get me a translation of those broadcasts. I want to know what kind of psychological state these survivors are in before we attempt contact. The fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, toward the little blue and green planet that should have been dead. The planet that, against all logic and reason, was playing rock music into the void. Velcara's scales rippled with a new emotion she couldn't quite identify. It might have been fear. It might have been curiosity. Either way, she had a feeling this rescue mission was about to become very, very complicated. The first detailed scans of Earth came through, and Velkara watched her entire bridge crew experience what could only be described as a collective mental breakdown. Population reading must be wrong, clicks chimed, their crystalline structure flickering with distress. Run it again. I've run it 6 times, the sensor operator replied, their voice climbing to a pitch that suggested imminent hysteria. The number keeps coming back the same. 8 billion. Billion. With A.B. Ambassador Zwexthor, who had insisted on joining the mission, dropped the data tablet he'd been holding. It clattered against the deck plating with a sound that seemed far too loud in the stunned silence. 8 billion, he repeated, his translator struggling with his clicking. That's not survivors. That's not a remnant population clinging to existence in underground bunkers. That's a thriving civilization. And they're on the surface, Chiptech added, his paw shaking as he pointed at the thermal imaging. Look at the population distribution. They're not hiding in the safest areas. They're everywhere. Coastal regions, mountain ranges, desert zones, areas with active seismic activity. They're living on top of literal volcanic hotspots. Velkara zoomed in on a coastal area. Her scales went completely gray, the reptilian equivalent of all blood draining from one's face. What are those humans doing? She asked slowly, the image enhanced. Hundreds of humans, wearing almost nothing, were voluntarily entering the ocean. The same ocean that the database confirmed was full of salt, a corrosive substance, and predators with names like tiger shark and box jellyfish. The translation says there, the communications officer checked twice, they're going to the beach. Apparently, this is a recreational activity. They do this for fun. Fun, Zwexthor whispered. They enter the predator-filled salt water for fun. More images flooded in, each more incomprehensible than the last. Humans scaling vertical rock faces on mountains, not to escape danger, but as a leisure activity called rock climbing. Humans running extreme distances through desert terrain in something called a marathon, apparently competing to see who could survive the ordeal fastest. The winner received a small metal disc and the admiration of other humans. Commander, the xenobiologist on duty interrupted, their voice strangled, I'm detecting something that cannot possibly be correct. These readings show humans cohabitating with Earth's apex predators. They're keeping the predators as prisoners? For study? No, Commander. As pets. Companion animals. They've domesticated wolves, pack hunters with powerful jaws and predatory instincts, into creatures they call dogs, and allow them to live in their homes. With their offspring. Zwexthor's antennae drooped. They keep the predators near their children. It gets worse, the xenobiologist continued, clearly having abandoned all hope of the universe making sense. They've also domesticated small ambush predators called cats that regularly present them with dead animals as gifts, and the humans find this endearing. Velkara pulled up nutritional data, hoping for something, anything, that would make sense. Instead, she found cultural documentation about human cuisine. Chiptech, what is capsaicin? According to the database, it's a chemical compound that triggers pain receptors, simulating the sensation of burning. Plants evolved it as a defense mechanism to prevent consumption. And humans? They add it to their food intentionally. They cultivate entire crops of plants specifically for their capsaicin content. There are competitive events where humans consume increasingly concentrated amounts and the one who can tolerate the most pain wins. They poison themselves for sport, Zwexthor said flatly. His compound eyes had stopped moving, fixed in what might have been a 1,000-yard stare. They live on a planet actively trying to kill them, they play in corrosive water filled with predators, they climb mountains for no survival reason, they keep apex predators as cuddle companions, and they competitively consume plant-based toxins. Ambassador, are you all right? Dr. Thimbrell asked with concern. No, Zewexthor replied with absolute honesty. No, I don't think I am. I believe I'm having what humans would call an existential crisis. Everything I learned at the academy about survival behavior, evolutionary pressure, and rational species development is currently being burned to ash by the existence of these insane primates. Velkara watched another image come through, a human jumping out of a flying vehicle with nothing but a fabric parachute, apparently also for fun, and had to agree. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're being hailed. Someone down there knows we're here." "Of course they do," Velkara sighed. "Because why should anything about this mission be straightforward? Open a channel." The landing party descended to Earth's surface in full hazmat gear, weapons charged, medical teams on standby, and every possible safety protocol activated. They touched down in a cleared area that humans had designated as a park, which apparently was just open land where they exposed themselves to the elements voluntarily. Commander Velkara's suit sensors immediately started screaming warnings. Oxygen levels, dangerous. Pathogen count, extreme. Ultraviolet radiation, elevated. Pollen count, she didn't even want to know. The human representative approached, and Velkara's threat assessment system had a complete meltdown. The human was wearing cloth. Just cloth. Thin cloth covering only portions of her body. No environmental suit. No breathing apparatus. No radiation shielding. Her skin, her actual organ meant to keep her insides inside, was just exposed to the atmosphere like that was a perfectly normal thing to do. "Hi there," the human said with a bizarrely cheerful expression that displayed her teeth, a threat display in most species. "I'm Captain Jennifer Rodriguez, but please, call me Jen. Welcome to Earth." Zewexthor made a clicking sound that his translator refused to convert, probably out of self-preservation. You're not in protective gear," Velkara managed, her translator adding several layers of concern that her words alone couldn't convey. Jen looked down at her clothing, what she'd called a t-shirt and jeans, and laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, this? Yeah, it's Casual Friday. I just got back from skydiving, so I didn't have time to change into my uniform. Hope that's okay." "Skydiving," Chiptech repeated faintly. "The activity where you jump from aircraft and hope the fabric parachute deploys correctly." "Exactly. You guys have done your homework." Jen beamed at them. "Anyway, I'm sure you've had a long trip. Can I offer you some coffee? We just brewed a fresh pot." The xenobiologist quickly consulted the database. "Commander, coffee is a stimulant drug derived from beans containing a compound called caffeine. Humans consume it to artificially elevate their heart rates and neurological activity." "You want to give us drugs," Zewexthor said weakly. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds way more exciting than it is," Jen replied, still smiling. "It's just coffee. Helps you wake up in the morning, especially after a late night. I was up until 2 a.m. yesterday helping my daughter with her science project." "Your offspring are still alive?" Velkara blurted out. Jen's expression shifted to confusion. Yes? Why wouldn't they be? Emma's 12. She's on a school field trip today, actually. They're visiting the volcanic formations in Hawaii. Should be educational." "School field trip," several aliens shouted simultaneously. "To volcanic formations. You send your children to active geological hazard zones." Zewexthor's voice had gone completely monotone, "for education." "Well, yeah. How else are they going to learn about volcanology?" Jen pulled out a small communication device. "Want to see pictures? Oh, here's one from last month when she went recreational diving. See that in the background? That's a reef shark. Completely harmless, despite the name." Dr. Thimbrell began administering sedatives to 2 crew members who had started hyperventilating. "Captain Rodriguez," Velkara said carefully, "perhaps you could explain what humans consider normal recreational activities." Oh sure. Well, there's swimming, hiking, camping, skiing, surfing, rock climbing, skydiving, scuba diving, kayaking, mountain biking. She paused, you know, regular stuff. My brother's really into ultramarathons. He just ran across Death Valley last month. Death Valley, Chip Tech repeated. It's called Death Valley and he ran across it. In summer, Jen added helpfully. More of a challenge that way. I need you to explain something, Velkara said, her scales now a color that indicated severe psychological distress. We've observed humans living in every climate zone on this planet. We've seen you swimming with predators, climbing mountains, living on earthquake fault lines. We've documented you consuming toxins for pleasure. Are these behaviors limited to a specific caste? Elite warriors, perhaps? What? No, that's regular people. My mom's an accountant and she goes hiking every weekend. My neighbor's a dentist and he surfs. Jen's confusion was deepening. Is everything okay? You guys seem really stressed. Is it the hazmat suits? Are they uncomfortable? Because I can show you where you can remove them safely. Remove them? The entire landing party took a collective step backward. Yeah, I mean, you're on Earth now. The air's perfectly safe. Well, unless you're in Beijing on a bad smog day, but we're in Colorado, so we're good. The air is perfectly safe, Zwexthor repeated in a voice that suggested his grip on sanity was now just a distant memory. Your atmosphere is 21% corrosive oxygen being bombarded by solar radiation from that fusion reactor you call a sun. Okay, now you're starting to worry me, Jen said. Should I call a medic? Do you guys need to sit down? Velkara decided to try a different approach. Captain Rodriguez, what can you tell us about the continent called Australia? Oh, Australia. Beautiful place. I spent a semester there in college. The beaches are gorgeous, the people are friendly, and the wildlife is, she paused, searching for words, enthusiastic. Enthusiastic, Velkara repeated carefully. Our database indicates that Australia contains the highest concentration of venomous species on your planet. Snakes, spiders, jellyfish, octopi, even a bird called a cassowary that can disembowel threats. Yeah, you've got to watch out for drop bears too, Jen said with a completely straight face. 3 aliens immediately collapsed and had to be carried back to the shuttle. Against her better judgment, Velkara agreed to a tour of a human city. The aliens remained in their hazmat suits despite Jen's repeated assurances that they were totally overdressed for Denver. The first stop was a public park where Velkara witnessed what she could only describe as negligent child endangerment on a mass scale. Those are children, Zwexthor observed, watching small humans running around completely unsupervised, their skin exposed to direct sunlight. Just playing. Outside. In the open air. Yeah, it's Saturday, Jen explained. Parents bring their kids to the park on weekends. See that playground? Emma loved that when she was younger. The structure made of metal and plastic that's heating up under solar radiation, Chip Tech clarified. You let your offspring climb on heated metal for entertainment. Well, when you say it like that, Jen started, then shrugged. Yeah, pretty much. They passed an outdoor restaurant where humans sat at tables, again just out in the open like lunatics, consuming food. What are they eating? Velkara asked, her sensors detecting complex chemical compounds. Oh, that's a Thai place. Probably pad Thai, curry, maybe some tom yum soup. Really good spicy food. The capsaicin-laden toxins, Zwexthor said. They're eating it socially. In groups. While also consuming, he checked his scanner, ethanol. They're combining pain-inducing plants with a literal poison. You mean beer? Jen looked at the outdoor patio. Yeah, Thai food and beer is a great combo. Although personally, I prefer wine with spicy food. Cuts the heat a bit. You have preferences about which poisons pair best with which toxins, Velcara stated flatly. As they walked, Jen chatted casually about human achievements. Oh, you should see the footage from the deep-sea explorations. We've sent submarines down to the Mariana Trench, deepest part of the ocean. The pressure down there would crush most of our regular vessels, but we built special ones just to see what's down there. You voluntarily went to the place with the most extreme pressure, Chiptech said. Well, someone had to. Can't let the giant isopods have all the fun. Jen grinned. Oh, and we've been to the moon. Multiple times, actually. During the Apollo program in the 1960s and 70s. 12 humans walked on it. The aliens stopped moving. You went to your existential threat satellite, Velcara said slowly. The massive object that gravitationally tortures your planet twice daily. You went there. On purpose. 6 times, Jen corrected. Well, 6 missions that landed successfully. And we left some equipment up there. A few rovers, some scientific instruments, and oh yeah, we left a car up there once. Lunar rover. Just because we could. ZWX Thor sat down on the sidewalk, his legs giving out. Just because you could. You went to your death moon and left a car just because you could. Also some golf balls, Jen added helpfully. Alan Shepard hit 2 golf balls on the moon during Apollo 14. For fun. Dr. Thimbrell was frantically taking notes, muttering something about revising every psychological profile in the Xenopsychology Handbook. Captain Rodriguez, Velcara said, desperate to find something that would make sense. Surely your species hasn't always been this reckless. What was your historical development like? Oh, you mean like wars and stuff? Yeah, we've had a lot of those. Humans fought each other for thousands of years over territory, resources, ideology, religion. World War II involved most of the planet. That was rough. You fought each other, Chiptech said. On top of everything else trying to kill you on this planet, you also fought each other. We're working on being better about that, Jen said optimistically. Haven't had a world war in over 80 years now. Progress. And your medical practices, Velcara asked, though she was beginning to regret every question. How do you treat disease? Lots of ways. Antibiotics, surgery, chemotherapy for cancer. Oh, and vaccines. We inject weakened or dead versions of diseases into healthy people so their immune systems learn to fight them. Been doing that for over 200 years. Wiped out smallpox completely. You inject diseases into healthy individuals, ZWX said from his position on the ground. Intentionally. Preventatively, Jen corrected. It's actually really smart when you think about it. None of the aliens were thinking about it. They were too busy having synchronized existential crises. That night, back aboard the flagship, Velcara stood in her quarters staring at Earth through the viewport. The planet rotated peacefully below, deceptively serene, while 8 billion humans slept, ate, reproduced, and apparently jumped out of aircraft for entertainment. The pieces finally clicked into place, and the realization hit her like a solar flare. They're not survivors, she said aloud to her empty quarters. They're not clinging to existence or barely making it. They're thriving. Earth hadn't broken humanity. It had forged them. Every impossible challenge this nightmare planet threw at them, the weather, the predators, the diseases, the natural disasters, humans had looked at each one and said, how can we make this fun? Hurricanes became categories to track and study. Mountains became achievements to summit. Oceans full of predators became vacation destinations. They'd taken a planet that should have killed them and turned it into an extreme sports resort. The galaxy's most dangerous world had produced the galaxy's most resilient, adaptable, and frankly terrifying species. Velcara pulled up the communication logs. Humanity had already been discussing space exploration with Jen. Not just visiting their moon again, they wanted to terraform Mars. They were talking about missions to Jupiter's moons, about interstellar travel, about meeting other civilizations. A cold dread settled into her scales. What happens when humans leave Earth, a species that evolved on a Class 12 Deathworld, that saw every danger as a challenge, every toxin as a seasoning option, every extreme environment as a potential holiday spot? What would they do with access to the galaxy? Her communicator chimed. Ambassador HFY's report to the Galactic Council was ready for her review. She opened it and read his recommendation section. Immediate diplomatic relations recommended. Full cultural exchange programs. Technology sharing treaties. And, Valkera's eyes widened at the last line, suggest all Council military installations be upgraded to maximum defensive capabilities. Not because humans are hostile, but because we need to be prepared for what comes after them. If Earth produced humans, and humans are now leaving Earth to explore the galaxy, we need to consider what other Deathworlds might produce. Humanity has just proven that Class 12 worlds don't create victims. They create apex species. Below that, HFY had added a personal note, also recommend increased psychiatric funding for Council members. We're all going to need therapy after this. Valkera looked back at Earth, watching lights twinkle across the night side, cities, highways, evidence of a civilization that had conquered the unconquerable. She opened a channel to the Council. This is Commander Valkera. Mission status, first contact successful. Requesting immediate diplomatic team deployment. And Council? You're going to want to sit down for this briefing. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. Humanity isn't asking for rescue. They're asking if we need any help. And I think we should probably say yes. So there you have it, folks. The galaxy's most elaborate rescue mission turned into the universe's most uncomfortable first contact scenario. Earth's official classification was updated in the Galactic database. Class 12 Deathworld, status, active. Inhabitant species, humans. Threat level, undefined. Sanity level, questionable. Notes, recommend approach with caution, humility, and low expectations for rational behavior. Some bureaucrat in the Council archives also added an unofficial tag, inhabited by certified lunatics who somehow made it work. Humanity received a formal invitation to join the Galactic Council within a month. The vote passed unanimously, though several representatives were observed taking anxiety medication before signing the decree. The Council chambers were reinforced, medical staff were put on standby, and someone quietly installed a liquor cabinet in the deliberation room. At Humanity's first official Council session, Captain Jennifer Rodriguez, now Ambassador Rodriguez, stood before the assembled civilizations of known space and delivered a speech about cooperation, mutual understanding, and peaceful exploration. Then she asked the question that made every alien in the chamber reach for their medication. So, we've been looking at your star charts. Do you folks have any challenging worlds we could help you explore? We saw a few Class 10s and 11s that look interesting. Volcanic planets, ice worlds, places with creative atmospheric conditions. We'd love to help with the science. Commander Valkera, now serving as the official liaison to humanity, watched Ambassador HFY's antennae droop in resignation. They want to visit more Deathworlds, he clicked softly. For fun. Of course they do, Valkera replied, her scales shifting to the color of acceptance. They're humans. What did we expect? From somewhere in the human delegation, someone, probably one of the scientists, could be heard saying those three words that would soon become infamous across the galaxy, the phrase that would make every alien species simultaneously reach for their emergency supplies, hold my beer. The Galactic Council was never quite the same after that, and honestly, the galaxy was probably better for it. Terrified, certainly. Confused, absolutely. In need of significantly more psychiatric services, without question, but better, because if humans had taught the galaxy anything, it was this: the universe doesn't give you more than you can handle. It gives you exactly what will either kill you or make you into something that treats death like an inconvenient hobby. Suggestion. Earth had chosen to make humanity into the latter. The rest of the galaxy was still deciding whether to be impressed or absolutely horrified. Most days, it was both.